Julian Lombardi never believed in accidents. As a billionaire entrepreneur who built his tech empire from nothing, his life ran like a Swiss watch. Every minute meticulously controlled, every decision calculated with precision, until that autumn afternoon. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan mansion, a scene in the garden stopped the billionaire in his tracks. The sound of Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake drifted through the crisp October air, mingling with the gentle splash of the marble fountain. There, among the carefully manicured roses, his 12-year-old son Leonardo was dancing with the house cook. Not just random steps, but professional ballet. Julian's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. Every movement of Isabella, the cook he'd hired just 3 months ago, exuded an elegance that shouldn't belong to someone in her position. Her corrections were precise, professional, the kind that came from years of formal training, not casual experience. The morning sun caught the silver threads in her dark hair as she demonstrated a perfect pirouette. Leonardo's school uniform had been replaced by proper dance wear. When had that happened? But what truly made Julian's breath catch was his son's expression. The serious, almost somber face that had become so familiar since Maria's passing was transformed into something he hadn't seen in years. Pure joy. Something wasn't right. Very wrong indeed. Julian's Italian leather shoes made no sound on the imported marble floors as he approached the garden doors. He stood there for a moment, watching through the glass. His son, the heir to a technology empire worth billions, was attempting a basic ballet position. Isabella's hands gently corrected Leonardo's form, her movements carrying the unmistakable authority of someone who has spent years in front of mirrors and audiences. Explain what's going on here. Julian's voice was calm but carried suppressed anger as he pushed open the glass doors. The music cut off abruptly, leaving only the sound of the fountain and distant city traffic. Isabella calmly wiped flour from her hands onto her pristine white apron, her composure unshaken. Your son wanted to learn to dance, Mr. Lombardi. Dance. Julian's frown deepened, creating lines in his otherwise perfectly maintained face. Leonardo needs to focus on his studies. The MIT summer program. Perhaps he needs more than just grades and programs. Isabella met Julian's eyes directly, something none of his employees dared to do. Since his mother passed away, I haven't seen him genuinely smile, until he started dancing. Julian's expression froze, the words hitting him like a physical blow. Maria had been gone for 5 years, taken by a car accident that shattered their perfectly ordered world. Yes, Leonardo had become withdrawn since then, retreating into books and computers, just as Julian had retreated into his work, building his company into an even greater empire. But that didn't give a cook the right to interfere with his parenting. That will be all, he said coldly, his CEO voice emerging. Leonardo, go to your room. We'll discuss this later. Leonardo's face fell, the joy draining away like water down a drain. But Dad, now. As Leonardo walked past, shoulders slumped, Isabella spoke again. Mr. Lombardi, sometimes the greatest gifts come from unexpected places. Your son has a natural talent. You're here to cook, Ms. Ruiz. Nothing more. Julian's tone left no room for argument. That night, sleep eluded him. In his mahogany-paneled study, Julian sat before his laptop, the blue light illuminating his troubled features. Isabella's background check glowed on the screen. Culinary school in Barcelona, excellent references from prominent families in Europe, spotless record. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. A man who built an empire on instinct knew when pieces didn't fit. The way she moved, the authority in her corrections, the perfect posture even when simply stirring a pot. These weren't the habits of someone who had spent their life in kitchens. His fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing. Isabella Ruiz plus ballet. The search revealed an old article that made his breath catch. There she was, 7 years younger, in a pristine white tutu on the stage of the Royal Opera House in London. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, her pose capturing a moment of perfect grace. The headline read, Rising Star Ballet Prodigy Vanishes Before International Tour. Julian leaned back in his leather chair, pieces clicking into place. Isabella Ruiz hadn't always been a cook. She had been destined for stardom until she mysteriously disappeared from the dance world. The article spoke of her meteoric rise, her perfect technique, her passionate performances. And then nothing, as if she had vanished into thin air. Further searches revealed more. Principal dancer at 19, scholarships at prestigious academies, glowing reviews from critics who predicted she would be the next great star. Until 7 years ago, when she simply stopped performing. The next morning, Julian found her in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with the same grace she had shown while dancing. Sunlight streamed through the windows, turning the professional kitchen into something almost ethereal. "You were a ballet dancer," he said without preamble. Isabella's hand stilled over the breakfast preparations, a shadow passing across her face. "Was," she emphasized, her voice soft but firm. "That was another life." "Why did you leave?" Julian demanded. His businessman's need to understand everything taking over. "Why hide who you are? You're a talent." Isabella's eyes met his, filled with an old pain that made him stop mid-sentence. "Sometimes, Mr. Lombardi, life takes everything you love in an instant." She placed the knife she was holding carefully on the cutting board. "My dance partner, Antonio, he was also my fiancé. He died the day before our biggest performance at the Royal Opera House. Car accident, just like your wife." The parallel hit Julian like a physical blow. She continued, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "After that, I couldn't dance anymore. The stage, the music, every movement. It all reminded me of him. So I chose a different path. Found peace in creating something else beautiful." She gestured to the perfectly plated breakfast. "At least, I couldn't dance until your son asked me to teach him." The revelation changed something in Julian, though he wasn't ready to admit it. Over the next few weeks, he found himself lingering in his study, watching through the window as Isabella taught Leonardo. They had converted a rarely used sunroom into a makeshift dance studio, complete with mirrors and a portable bar. One afternoon, unable to resist his curiosity, he stood in the doorway, watching their lesson. Leonardo moved with growing confidence, each step more assured than the last. Isabella stood beside him, her corrections gentle but firm. So different from the harsh ballet instructors Julian remembered from his own childhood piano lessons. "Again," she said, demonstrating a turn. "Remember, Leonardo, dance isn't about perfection. It's about feeling, about telling a story with your body." Something in her words struck Julian like lightning. Perfection. Wasn't that what he had always demanded from Leonardo? Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect control. The same crushing expectations his own father had placed on him. But when was the last time he had asked his son what he felt? He watched as Leonardo attempted to turn again, stumbling slightly, but immediately trying once more. There was determination in his son's eyes that Julian had never seen before, not when studying for tests or working on coding projects. "Dad!" Leonardo's voice snapped Julian from his thoughts. His son had noticed him in the doorway, face flushed from exertion, but eyes bright with something that looked suspiciously like hope. Will you come to my first competition?" Julian felt something shift inside him, like tectonic plates moving beneath the surface. "Competition?" Isabella stepped forward, her posture automatically straightening as she addressed him. "Leonardo has been invited to participate in the Junior Dance Championship next month. He's ready." She paused and added softly, "More than ready. I've been practicing every day," Leonardo added quickly, words tumbling out. "Before school, during lunch break, after homework. I know it's not what you wanted from me, but I'll be there," Julian interrupted, surprising himself and his son. The words came from somewhere deep inside, from a place that remembered his own abandoned dreams of becoming a musician before his father steered him toward business school. "If this is what you really want, then show me." Leonardo's face lit up with a smile that reminded Julian so much of Maria. It physically hurt. His wife had always said their son had an artist soul. Had she seen something he'd been too busy to notice? That evening, after Leonardo had gone to bed, Julian found Isabella in the kitchen, preparing the next day's meals. "Why didn't you tell me about the competition sooner?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual edge. Isabella continued chopping vegetables with precise movements. "It wasn't my place," she said simply. "Leonardo needed to find the courage to tell you himself." Julian watched her work, noting how even the simple task was performed with a dancer's grace. "The accident that took Antonio, is that why you never returned to dance?" Her knife still for a moment. "Partly," she admitted. "But mostly, I realized that sometimes our greatest performances aren't on stage. Sometimes they're in the small moments, teaching someone else to find their joy." She looked up at him. "Your son dances like his mother must have lived, with his whole heart." The words hit home. Maria had indeed lived that way, embracing every moment with passion and joy, until a rainy night, and a drunk driver took her away forever. "Will you help him?" Julian asked quietly. "Really help him prepare for this competition?" Isabella's smile was gentle. "Mr. Lombardi, I've been helping him all along. The question is, will you?" The day of the competition arrived with a tension that filled the Grand Lincoln Center Theater. Backstage was a chaos of nervous energy, proud parents, and young dancers in elaborate costumes. Julian felt distinctly out of place in his perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit. This was far from corporate boardrooms where he usually commanded attention. Leonardo adjusted his costume for the 100th time, his hands trembling slightly. The deep blue outfit, custom-made at Julian's insistence, caught the light with each movement. Julian stood awkwardly nearby, unsure his role in this unfamiliar world of dance. "Your main competitor, Santiago Beltran," Isabella explained quietly, nodding to her boy warming up across the room. "He's won this competition twice before." Julian watched the confident boy execute a perfect series of turns. Santiago moved with the assurance of someone born into the dance world, his technique flawless. His father, Ramon Beltran, a name Julian had researched extensively, stood beside him, radiating the same certainty Julian usually felt in business meetings. "He's so good," Leonardo whispered, his confidence visibly wavering. Julian found himself kneeling beside his son, something he hadn't done since Leonardo was small. "Hey," he said softly, "remember what you told me about why you love dancing?" Leonardo nodded slowly, his eyes meeting his father's. "You said it makes you feel close to Mom," Julian continued, his voice rough with emotion. "That when you dance, you can feel her watching. Remember that. Forget about winning. Just show them that feeling." Isabella's sharp intake of breath behind them told Julian he had finally said exactly the right thing. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Next performer, Leonardo Lombardi." As Leonardo stepped onto the stage, Julian felt something he hadn't experienced since Maria's death. Complete loss of control. His son was alone out there, and all his money, all his power, all his careful planning meant absolutely nothing. The music began, not the traditional classical piece they had expected, but Maria's favorite song, "The Time of Your Life." Julian's heart stopped. He hadn't heard this song since. The theater fell silent as Leonardo began to dance. His first movements were hesitant, but then something magical happened. Julian watched, transfixed, as his son transformed before his eyes. Every step told a story, not of technical perfection like Santiago's performance, but of love, loss, and the courage to find joy again. When the music reached a crescendo, Leonardo attempted the most difficult move, a complex turn followed by a leap that Isabella had been carefully teaching him. Julian held his breath. For a moment, his son seemed to float, suspended in air, completely free. The landing wasn't perfect. There was a slight wobble, something the judges would surely notice. But the smile on Leonardo's face was real, radiant, alive. The audience erupted in applause. Julian found himself on his feet, clapping until his hands hurt. Beside him, Isabella wiped away tears, her professional composure finally cracking. Later, when Santiago Beltran was announced as the winner, Leonardo's disappointment was visible but brief, because moments after, he received something unexpected, a special award for most inspiring performance. "You know what, Dad?" Leonardo said as they walked to the car, his special award gleaming in the evening light. "I think Mom would have loved this." Julian pulled his son close, feeling the warmth of him, the life in him. She would have, he whispered, and she would have been so proud, just like I am. That evening, Julian watched from his study window as Leonardo practiced in the garden with Isabella. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, the same colors Maria had loved. His son wasn't just dancing anymore, he was living. And perhaps Julian realized that was the greatest victory of all. Life's greatest lessons often come from unexpected teachers. Julian had thought he knew what was best for his son, but sometimes letting go of control leads to the most beautiful discoveries. In trying to protect Leonardo from pain, he had almost prevented him from finding his joy. Isabella caught his eye through the window and gave a small nod. She had taught them both something invaluable, that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is dance through our pain until we find our way back to love. What would you have done in Julian's position? Would you have let your child pursue their passion, even if it wasn't what you had planned for them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between maintaining control and supporting someone's dreams? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more inspiring stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Remember, sometimes the best things in life happen when we dare to dance outside our comfort zone.